Lough Nafooey lies like a jewel in the heart of Joyce's country, deep in the mountains that rise between Lough Nafooey to the east and Killery Harbour to the west. To the north are the Partry Mountains, to the south the peaks of the Mom Turk Range. This area, although one of the most stunningly beautiful in Ireland, is also one of the most unspoiled, scenically and socially. The village of Shanafarachan lies off the usual tourist track, and even people who claim to know Ireland well are surprised to find that this is an Irish-speaking area, one of the lesser-known Gaeltachtaí, but it is also a repository of other waning traditions. Joe Hogan is a native of Caltra in East Galway. He farms a small holding of land, but also carries on the tradition of basket making. Joe is no recluse in search of his own Shangri-La. His life here is shared by his wife Dolores, who comes from Tipperary town, and their son Dara. To Joe and Dolores, it is just a life like any other.
I don't think there's anything special about what we're doing here, no more than that there's anything special to say about what anyone else is doing.
I came from Tipperary town, and it's a nice town, but I think it's very different to living in the country, living with the mountains and nice scenery. Well, I suppose when we saw it, we thought there isn't much more you'd want than a lake out in front of you and mountains all around you, a bit of land and a house. Freedom to walk up the mountain, freedom to walk down by the lake, nice people. Most peace of mind.
With only 4 acres of arable land and 20 acres of mountain, or parkland as it is called here, it would seem to be rather a precarious way of life. The new Sally garden by the lake will provide an abundance of raw materials for the craft of basket making. Like any other crop, the Sally rods and osiers need careful cultivation. Joe grows a variety of willows and osiers, for as well as making heavy creels and baskets, he also weaves lighter and finer ones. The development of farm machinery and the advent of cheap tin goods and cheaper plastic seem to have done away with the creel and the kishog for all time, as well as with the craft of basket making. Old ways die hard, however. These geese are kept to crop the grass around the willows. So they earn their keep before they become part of the celebrations at Michaelmas or Christmas. Not so many years ago, the Sally Garden was a necessary part of any small holding in rural Ireland.
Hello, Deirdre. Hello, how are you, Dara? How's yours?
When we were looking for a place, we thought it was as well to settle for a place where we'd stay for good, because I haven't much time for this style now that's the go, say, in Dublin or that of moving house every now and again. I don't care for that. I'd sooner put down roots in a place and get to know people and have friends in a place. And I don't see how you can have that if you're going from one place to another. Well, we're well satisfied with it. We found most of our neighbours very nice people. And the funny thing, we have a lot to learn from them. In the line now, say, of what to do with, say, even haymaking or all those things, because we're only kind of, if you like, learners in that way, and we're only kind of coming into these things. But we found our neighbours now up here, and Tommy and Ann and Mikey up here, very helpful altogether and very nice. So I'd say I'll be waiting around this place.
Joe begins to fashion another basket, and his neighbour, Tommy Joyce, calls in for a chat. Tommy is making a kishog, a round, shallow basket used for straining potatoes.
Well, one he made 3 last year, what's that? We made Geno Carter Masto.
Shenanish. Eroidish. Can you make Sula?
Right, Margaret, machine.
I thought I should have a trade, and well, I looked around at the trades that were on the go, and I thought maybe what they call the dead trades had as good a future as any other trade. Those would be trades, if you like basket making and maybe even thatching now and making barrels maybe or something like that. That maybe there's so few people doing them that, and there's still a need for them, maybe you have as good a chance making those as anything else. Even though I suppose you won't make as much money as if you were plastering a house or anything like that.
In recent years, other declining crafts, such as that of the farrier, thatcher and tweed weaver, have been supported by organisations and business interests to prevent their extinction, for practical as well as for cultural reasons.
We were kind of interested, if you like, in moving to a place that was in Connemara, and we had I had anyway, of living in an Irish-speaking area as well, because it's just a thing I like and a thing that I was kind of brought up with when I was younger.
Joe Hogan is a graduate in philosophy from University College Galway. It is perhaps a reflection of the tendency to put people in pigeonholes that anyone should be surprised to find such a graduate making baskets here. That is certainly Joe and Delora's reaction. They find it annoying to be looked on as people who have abandoned a profession rather than people who have adopted a new one.
As to the sort of baskets I make, well, the baskets I learned to make down in Cork, Waterford area down there, in one way they could just as easily have been made in England. They weren't particularly Irish baskets, but the way of making a basket, it doesn't really vary from one country to another. But since I come up here then, I saw that there were baskets, if you like, that were only used in this country, such now as the donkey creel or the kishol. And I didn't know how to make those when I came here, but Tommy above showed me that. And they're baskets that, say, had their own uses here.
At the beginning of the century, there were many different types of basket in everyday use. Baskets for turf, baskets for carrying seaweed from the shore, panniers to be carried in pairs by horses and donkeys, tightly woven baskets with wooden bottoms for carrying sand, little baskets for children, baskets of varying design used to trap fish and birds. But like the craft of the thatcher and the cooper, the skills of the basket maker were almost lost. The finishing touches are made to the kishog. In the old days, when large families ate together, the pot of potatoes was turned over the kishog, the boiling water strained through, and the kishog placed in the middle of the table within reach of all. Joe Hogan believes that a trade and a bit of farming is as good a way to live as any other. His son Dara is growing to an age when children begin to learn unconsciously by imitating their elders. This way of life enables both father and mother to have the growing child at their feet as they work. The child has a free run of the house and fields and a great variety of playthings, which will in time become work things. Both Joe and Dolores found the life in Galway city unreal, but their decision to come here was influenced, in part at least, by the way the world is accelerating towards tension and conflict at present. It is a situation which may seem stranger to the onlooker than to the Hogan family. It is also a situation which looks more idyllic when the summer sun shines than when the winter storms rage around the Monturk mountains. But it is a life that could never be called unreal. The exodus from the countryside to the cities has been stemmed in recent years, and one can now discern a trend in the opposite direction. It is far from being an exodus, but it is happening on a small but steady scale. The creel is built up from the mouth to the bottom. When Joe decided to take up basket making, he went to learn the craft in the Cork, Waterford areas. The tradition of basket making in Shannafaraghain is truly functional, as it is in those areas of Ireland where the donkey and creels continue to be used on the bogs, for the simple reason that this was the most efficient way to get turf out of remote and trackless places. This is how the creel is fashioned, and this is how Joe Hogan learns a new skill from his neighbour.
Yeah, I don't think you know everything immediately. You're always learning. There's an Irish saying called Tagan Keele Hish, and it was very true in that respect.
Basket making in this style has been going on in the exact same way for hundreds and hundreds of years. Nobody has yet found a more efficient or simpler way to make a creel. Once upon a time, and not such a long time either, sentence of death was almost passed on the small farmer, particularly the small hill farmer of the western seaboard. In the last 10 years or so, the wheel has turned, and little communities that had almost vanished began to look forward to a new lease of life. Many, indeed, had vanished already, but those that survived, like Shannafaraghain, were lucky enough to confound the prophets of doom. The reasons for this complete reversal of a widespread trend are economic. As towns grow bigger, there are more and more to feed, and the more people who are kept on the land productively, the better. Membership of the European Economic Community has given new markets and new hope to the sheep farmers of North Connemara and Mayo, and children are no longer reared, as they were for so long, to take the boat or plane to seek a living far from home. Dolores makes oven bread in the traditional way, which is also the best way, and Joe tells of how they first met.
Oh, I met Dolores in Galway at a dance. wasn't the best of a dancer, but that didn't seem to matter much. So that was all right.
The smell of fresh bread, as it is baked in this manner, is one that lingers for a lifetime. Again, the process is so simple, or at least looks so simple, that the pitfalls for the unwary are not apparent until the foolhardy novice rushes in, and instead of the smell of slowly browning crust, the smell of charred dough fills the kitchen. Then one realises the truth of the Irish proverb, Náhuid an cheirds gan a fólan. The craft not learned is an enemy. Someone said of the game of hurling that excellence meant doing the simplest things well and at all times, without ever failing. The simple life as seen by the outsider often means a vision of self-sufficiency. Joe Hogan doesn't see things in that utopian light.
That word that you asked me about, self-sufficiency, I hear a bit of talk about it. I gather it means doing everything for yourself. Insofar as I suppose you wouldn't be going to the grocers at all then. Well, I don't believe in that really. So far as I'm concerned, I just think that maybe if you can do some things for yourself, it's better maybe than buying everything in the shop, surely. And of course, if you have land, you're as well to grow potatoes and vegetables anyway. And maybe have your few sheep or something like that every year.
The bogs around Lough Nafooey have been well dug over the years, but they still supply the needs of the community. Self-sufficiency is a dream from which most world politicians awake at the moment whenever fuel is mentioned. Even in Ireland, where the bogs have been exploited on a very large scale, the world crisis in fuel has given small bogs that were abandoned in times of plenty a new lease of life. Tommy Joyce's young sons, Joseph, Desmond and Paul, make their contribution to the household's preparation for winter. Apart from minor differences and methods of cultivation, the life of a smallholder here is much the same as it is in East Galway or Tipperary. Joe and Dolores have no illusions about being totally self-sufficient, but clearly enjoy the amount of independence they have so far achieved. They mean to have a cow and to graze sheep on the uplands. They mean to plant an acre of trees to supplement their fuel supply, for the local bogs are being rapidly exhausted. The international problem of energy extends to Lough Nafooey also.
I wouldn't ever divide my time into working time and free time. I notice around here that, if you like, the day is long in one way, and it's a wrong thing perhaps to call your work working and your free time. Maybe it's better just to mix them up and see what each day will bring you in that way. Sometimes there'll be a lot of free time in your working, and on other times there might be a lot of working in your free time.
There are no divisions of labour here, and divisions of time are governed more by darkness and light and by the passing of the seasons than by the calendar and the clock. What wasn't done today can be easily accomplished tomorrow. Joe Hogan doesn't worry about missing a day at any particular task, but if he was a week without working, he would worry. This particular way of life doesn't extend to doctor's certificates and sick pay. One begins to understand the deeper feeling of the countryman's mode of expressing gratitude. May God spare you the health. Apart from that, it is as secure a way of life as any other, provided, of course, that one's attitude of mind is like that of Joe and Dolores Hogan. With the willows that he grew, soaked in the water that flows by his house to ensure pliability, Joe Hogan starts to fashion another basket. The craft of basket making is one of the quietest of all handcrafts. In fact, it is almost noiseless, and what noise there is reminiscent of woodlands bowing to the breeze. The basket maker's livelihood depends on the speed at which he can work, and already Joe needs more indoor working space. Soon he hopes to build a new house and will use the old one as a workshop. He is his own boss now, and he is a man who takes decisions in a leisurely way. As a philosopher, he is probably in a better position than most to evaluate the importance of tranquility and peace of mind. In an increasingly violent age, the superficial attractions of places like Shanafarachon are fairly obvious. But Joe and his wife are not running away from anything, nor are they involved in any fashionable process of opting out. They see themselves clearly as becoming part of a life that has more than fine scenery in summer to recommend it. They are anxious to merge into the life of the community. The decision to settle here was influenced to a great extent by the gentleness and wisdom of the people who are now their neighbours. Their children will inherit all this, whatever about the craft of basket making.
As for whether my children will do it, that's up to themselves. I have no way of saying whether it is a good thing to do or not. It's just, all I can say is that it suits me. If somebody else came up to me and said that they thought would suit them, well, sure, that would be fine. I'd show them how to do it. But, well, I think myself baskets are very handy things. I think they're, if you like, they're undervalued in one way insofar as that, say, there'll be a lot of people now going out to shops, say, in Galway, that they'll be buying maybe things made of brass, maybe for holding turf, or maybe even out of plastic. And of course those things will only last a very short time. Or if it's made out of brass, it might last a long time, but it'll be, again, a lot dearer than a basket. Another thing, of course, is that if you work at a trade in that way, and basket making in that sense is a trade, there's a quality in what you make. It won't fall to pieces or anything like that, and baskets actually last a long time. So even in that way, I suppose they're cheap. They might even be cheaper than a plastic bucket that you might pick up for 99 pence. But as for whether basket making has any great future or not, I couldn't answer that. I suppose you could say that as far as wealth or anything like that would go, that Dolores or myself, we haven't a lot of it. But otherwise, there's nothing wrong with it. And then maybe that I suppose I wouldn't say we're poor either. I mean, we have enough to eat. And as far as that goes, if you have that, sure, I don't see you have much to complain about, because I don't think it's what you have as such in what you own that's the most important thing. So as far as it goes, I'm satisfied here. Well, I'd go over now to Clonborough or that, or maybe to Cong. They'd say, oh, Shanafarachon. Oh, it's Wignocation, or that's a lonely spot, or something like that. But as far as we're concerned, we wouldn't find it that way. It is a nice place. Some people make out that it is only a nice place in the summertime, but that would be a bit isolated, I suppose, in winter time. But we wouldn't have any complaint in that line. As far as I'm concerned, if you want to do a thing, and if it's all right and it doesn't harm anyone else, you're just as well to do it. But not be doing too much thinking about things. I can't see that it does any good one way or the other. You're just as well to do them. If that's what you want to do it, and not be trying to figure out why you're doing it or anything like that.
Well, we trace the patterns yielded from yet another Irish tradition next Tuesday at 7 here on RTE1. But after the break, Patrick's feeling lovesick across the water in the East End.